we bury, we suppress it down so deep, because I'm a daddyless daughter. You don't realize how much that pain is just deep down until you finally let it out. Was that for you? Like, you just didn't realize it, like, okay, I'm going to go through life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to, go to school or have a career and everything else. But did you realize at that moment, once you release it, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had suppressed all of this deep down.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. I, at least, had always known how much it affected me and how much it hurt me and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize the charge behind it, the emotional charge, and just how much I had been holding on to that pain. Mm-hmm. And so that was my chance to let it go. And I took it.
Rolling on the block, Marisa Tigney heard that. Podcast show about to start. Heard that. You should know if entertainment is your goal. You talking sports or travel, yo. This the hottest pod show. Heard that. She got her shoes. Everything she says is truth. If you don't know now, you know. All you ever gotta say is heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Look, all you ever gotta say.
What's up, Heard That Nation? Listening in the United States and around the world, you are listening now to the Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast. If you're watching right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you stay in the know of all future episodes and guests that I have on the show, including this guy right here, which I'm so honored to have on, Kyle McMahon. He is a singer. He's a songwriter. I mean, pretty much I'm waiting for him to just fly because he can do everything. He's been a contributor for the Huffington Post, and he has an incredible show that he does weekly called Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon. I am so thrilled to have him on the podcast today. Kyle, welcome to the Heard That podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, first of all, I have to just, I am so, I said singer and songwriter, but I did not realize you have amazing vocals, sir. I'm waiting for you to put out some new tracks. I'm waiting for you to go on tour. I mean, I know that you did go on a tour some few years back, and correct me if I'm wrong, with LFO. Kids on the block, Californians, Chinese food makes me sick, and I think it's fine when girls stop by for the sun. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love, because I love me some boy bands. How did you what has been your music inspirations, and how did you okay, I can kind of, I got this singing thing, so I'm just going to kind of, go with that. I mean, how did you get started with that?
Well, so my parents, especially my mom, was always interested in music, always had music playing around the house. Mm-hmm. My house was always filled with everything, Motown, disco, pop, all kinds of music. And so I grew up with that. And then I was always writing, I guess you could say poems. And then as I kind of in grade school, my parents put me in, guitar lessons and piano lessons and all that kind of thing as I was interested in it. And just started turning these poems into songs. And then it just went from there. And a friend of mine, Janice Robinson, was is a songwriter and singer and performer. And she was signed with Warner Brothers. And so I went to see her. And I brought I had recorded it on a recorder, like a handheld recorder, some of these songs or whatever. And her rep happened to be there. And so it just went from there. And I did a deal with Warner. And so development deal, geez. And so with that, they kind of groom you into how, you can get better at what you do, better at your craft and that sort of thing. So, and then it just kind of went from there. And then that led to all kinds of other things. And music has just been always a huge part of my life. And I thank, especially my mom for that.
And it's so comforting because I grew up in the 70s. I'm a 70s baby. And so vinyls and 8-track cassettes and cassette tapes were the staple pieces in my house. And like you said, music was always playing, and music definitely has throughout my life, and I'm sure that you can relate, has been such a source of healing and comfort at the right time. When it comes to music and comes to songs, I know, like I just mentioned, you know, LFO, what is your favorite artist? Who's been your favorite artist that you have met or you want to meet?
Oh, that I've met. Geez, I've been very lucky with, you know, what I do to be able to meet many of my favorite artists. One of my absolute favorites is Mike Posner, who's an incredible singer-songwriter.
I loved when you talked to him.
Yeah,
that
he's
is
so
one
awesome.
of my favorite episodes off of your show. Oh,
thank you. Thank you. He is absolutely incredible. And I love how he, you know, has had all these hits himself and then written all these hits for other people. And then, you know, decides to kind of, his father passed away and he decides, you know what, I'm putting all that away for a period and I'm going to walk across America, you know, by foot. And so he walked from New Jersey to California. And so I just love that about him, that, you know, he doesn't really care about that stuff. He's very much an artist. You know, Madonna's one of the biggest. I love how she's just an empire and has transformed herself over and over again. Eminem is another one that I just think is incredibly talented. Kendrick Lamar is one of my absolute favorites. I mean, he's just a poet.
His new album is fire.
It is insane. He's just, you know, he is unbelievable. So, I mean, it's all over the place, you know, with the types of music that I love. And that's a product of my upbringing. You know, I mean, like I said, my mom would, you know, forever, her entire life would listen to Motown and disco and, you know, dance pop. And, you know, so, I mean, I just grew up with all these influences and that reflects in the music that I listen to. And it is, I do, as you said, for you, you know, it has been very healing for me. And to be able to, in this job that I do, to meet some of these people is awesome, because I want to know, you know, I have so many questions for them, and I want to know, you know, why did you write this song or that song or whatever, you know, what was the story behind that? And Mike Posner is, you know, another great example that he wrote a song that was very special to my mom and I, and it wasn't a single or anything, so it wasn't something most people would ask him about, and, you know, I got the opportunity to ask him, and that just meant something to me. So that's been a really cool kind of bonus, I guess, of you know, part of what I do.
I love what you do, because the guests that you have in your show, and, you know, to go back to one of the reason why I said Mike Posner was one of my favorite episodes, because how both of you all instantly, few seconds into the conversation, I don't even call it an interview, because both of you all connected immediately into the interview. And it was just like both of you all, when you were talking and you know, you get to some of the songs that he was talking about and different things that was happening in his life. To me, as sitting back there and as a person that was watching it, and that's why it's so important to me when I listen to podcasts and I watch, you know, lives and everything else, how the person that is doing the leading the interview or leading the conversation with the guest, how well did they jive together? How well did they connect? And there was a connection there. And I think the connection that you both had, I mean, I saw it in the feed, in the comments of, you know, I was like, have they been friends for like years? Because that's the vibe that I caught. Like, they seem like y'all have been friends since, you know, elementary school, and y'all just like, you know, been, you know, friends and connected throughout. And as you said, music is such a healer, and in you being a writer, and you being a songwriter, and you wrote an incredible song that connects to an episode that you were on in 2012, 2013, you can correct me on that, Oprah's Masterclass. And I had talked to a couple of people, guys especially, that commented and said, "Oh, you're talking to Kyle McMahon. That man made me bawl my eyes out."
Oh.
And you have been such a wonderful resource of healing. When you were on that segment, it was a powerful segment. I remember watching it live and then watching it again. And I'm like, okay, I see why the tears flowed the first time I saw you on there and you were bravely, standing up in that arena of bravery and told your story, and then watching it again.
Believe me, he is suffering. And how he compensates for that suffering, we will never know, nor do you need to know. It ain't about you, boo. It ain't about you. And you didn't do anything wrong.
Yes, but isn't the issue that you wanted it to be about you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a hard concept for me to grasp.
I want to know from you, you were on that master class, with Iyanla Vanzant and Oprah Winfrey, Fatherless Sons. It is hard. It is hard. And you made it, emotions and all, you made it such, I don't want to say such with ease, because I don't want to say that in that, because that's difficulty, someone that experiences that kind of pain, not to have, your father in your life. But how did you get involved in that and connect with that? And then, standing up in a group of men, that core audience being all men that were all, you all were connected. Basically, you all were men that grew up without your fathers involved in your life. How did that whole thing transpire?
That was, first of all, thank you. That was not only, transformative for me for that aspect of my life, which was a huge aspect, but it really transformed my entire life going forward. Originally, Iyanla was, I think how it happened was Iyanla was setting up her show with OWN. Iyanla Fix My Life, I think, is what it's called. And she they put this thing out there for Fatherless Sons, and somebody sent it to me, and then it went that way, and then it turned into Life Class, which is what it ended up being. It started out as one episode, and then it turned into two, and then right on the spot, Oprah was like, okay, we're making this 3 episodes. And then I think it was like 6 episodes because of how much damage I think this does and has done to our country. And so I think Oprah and Iyanla saw the importance of that as we were doing that show. But I will say on the back end, I at first wanted to do it, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, maybe I don't, because I'm putting at that point the hardest thing that I had ever been through, something that was permeating every day through my life, on display for arguably the biggest stage in the world. You're talking Oprah, and so then I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that. And then I'm like, well, I would love to have Iyanla help me, with this. And then I'm like, well, there's other people involved too. I have my mom and my dad. And I didn't really, this sounds bad, but I didn't really care about the repercussions for my father because, you kind of did this to me. You're out of my life anyway. So what, but with my dad, my mom and dad, my mom was a direct participant, I guess you could say, in that. So then I'm like, oh, this isn't just me putting out my story, it's me putting out her story too. And so I talked to them about it. My dad was like, you do whatever you feel you have to do. If you feel that this is good for you, go do it. My mom ultimately said the same thing, but she wanted me to think about it for me. And so I went back and forth, and then ultimately did it. And I went out to Chicago, numerous times for pre-interviews and all that, to Harpo. And, then when it finally happened, and then you see your story on this screen in front of Oprah, in front of all these men who have been there themselves, and in front of Iyanla and, the whole production team. And I'm there by myself in Chicago, and I'm like, okay, you have a choice. I literally thought this as that my story was playing out on the screen. You have a choice. You either kind of hold back and be afraid,
Yeah.
or you just let it out and see what happens, you know? And so in that kind of instant, I thought, you've had this wall up your entire life regarding this. Let's break down that wall and see what happens. So, so that's what I did. And I'm glad that I did it. The repercussions were incredible personally. You know, I mean, it really did help me to heal in a lot of ways, and lessen the power that it had over me in my life. And that's huge. I mean, you know, years of therapy.
Thank God for therapy. Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody should be going to a therapist. But,
yeah,
you know, it really was life-changing for me. And years of therapy had gotten me there, but that moment really put me over the edge of allow yourself to heal and feel what you're feeling and that sort of thing. And it was transformative for me. I mean, I had, you know, I've struggled on and off with anxiety my entire life. And there were repercussions to that, you know, to doing Oprah. I had some anxiety attacks for a while coming back, but that was kind of expected when you have kind of just released this huge beast off of your shoulders. You know, I expected all that, and that's all handleable, you know, able to be handled. However, then I started getting, I mean, it was insane when the show aired. Oprah like broke my phone because we live tweeted it, and we were, you know, was giving my thoughts to it, and that sort of thing. And just the notifications on my phone alone were just like, I had to turn it off because my phone was unusable. And I realized that there are so many people that this has affected that we would never know. You know, I mean, we know
because we suppress it down so deep, because I'm a daddyless daughter. So everything that you were saying in that moment in the arena and telling your story, I was like, whew. I mean, I did. I when I was listening to you that night, I couldn't even say a word. I just took a breath. I'm like, man, he went for it. And he released his story. And I'm looking around at the audience, and I'm looking at these fathers, and some of them nearby you. I don't know if you caught that on the replay when you were watching it that night, and it, you know, over and over again, they were weeping, listening to you tell your story and saying that you are going to become the best man that you can be. Because Iyanla had to correct your verbiage, saying you're going to be the best man that you can be. And I mean, just, you don't realize how much that pain is just deep down until you finally let it out. Was that for you? Like, you just didn't realize, like, okay, I'm going to go through life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to, you know, go to school or have a career and everything else. But did you realize at that moment, you know, once you release it, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had suppressed all of this deep down.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. You know, I at least had always known how much it affected me and how much it hurt me and that sort of thing. But I didn't realize the charge behind it, the emotional charge, and just how much I had been holding on to that pain. And so that was my chance to let it go. And I took it, you know, and I'm so glad that I did. But that was huge for me to see how many people, to this day, I mean, it's crazy. To this day, people will still email me or message me on social or whatever and be like, oh, I caught a rerun, or I saw it on YouTube or whatever. And I felt the same way, or this or that. And I'm just like, you know, 7-8 years later or whatever, people are still seeing this and responding to it. And that makes me happy that, one, I did it. Because ultimately, you know, I realized from that the power of telling your story can change the world. And if we all, you know, give ourselves the power to really tell our stories, I mean, imagine all of the, you know, fighting that would cease, and, you know, arguments that would not be relevant anymore, and that sort of thing. If we all really just sat down and listened to each other, tell our stories, why I am the way that I am, why are you the way that you are, you know, who hurt you and what hurt you. And so that was a pivotal thing for me too, in realizing the power of telling your story, which became important later on in, you know, what I do now.
Because I know that your story has, as you just said, you know, resonated with so many people and connected with so many people, and still to this day, because I can't believe next year it's 10 years.
Is it?
Since it was aired. Yeah, May 2013 is when it aired. And it was the first like that. So yeah, so throughout that whole span of years, Kyle, your story has resonated with so many people and so many men. And I'm, you know, like you shared, I know that so many of them have, you know, found some solace and some healing in that. Has there been, you said you have gotten emails and, you know, calls, texts, and anybody, you know, through different people. Is there any of them, or one in particular, that stands out to you that, you know, this person was like, oh my God, you literally saved my life, or, you know, thank you for sharing your story, that person connected with you? Because like you said, you have pretty much your phone blew up that night. So, you know, is there any stories that people that connected with you after that airing and still connect with you, that you just haven't forgotten about them, or you sometimes go and check on them throughout?
Yes. Yeah, there's this one woman in particular who had reached out to me that she was afraid. She was contemplating an abortion because the father had wanted nothing to do with her and or the baby, the child, and so she knew if she was going to have this baby, that she's going to be going it alone, and so she was terrified. You know, she didn't know, well, what happens if my son's father chooses to not be in his life? Like, am I hurting him or her by knowingly doing this or whatever? And so she reached out on Twitter, and we brought it to, you know, the phone. And I had many conversations with her that, you know, he or she will be okay because of your love that you're, you know, that you already have for them. And so she ended up having the baby, and we had, you know, very deep conversations about that. And as long as she was prepared in every other way to, you know, bring this life, I didn't want that to stop her from, you know, having a child. If her only fear was that this is going to damage him or her beyond belief, then I don't want to do that. And I wanted her to know that, you know, look at all those men in that audience, you know, look at me. I am not, you know, I was set up, thankfully, with, you know, my mom being such a huge influence on my life, my family, that they were able to, set me up in other ways, make sure that I had therapy when needed and that sort of thing, that I could still get that part out, but still lead a relatively healthy, productive life. And so I think that changed her opinion a little bit, that, okay, this doesn't mean my child is going to be damaged for the rest of their life and they'll never be able to get over it. This doesn't mean that they're going to, you know, automatically have mental health problems or end up in jail, as many fatherless sons do, and that sort of thing. They don't have to be a statistic, especially if you are starting at the beginning with resources to make, you know, to do everything in your power that they aren't that statistic. You know what I'm saying? So that I think was probably the biggest one that really hit me, because I'm like, wow, this is a choice between, you know, a life coming into this world or not. And so that was big for me. And she has a healthy, happy baby boy, and it's pretty crazy, you know, and I know that she has set him up to have the best life that he can, you know. And of course, just like any other child, a lot of the rest of that story is going to be up to him, you know what I mean? But she has done everything in her power to set him up for that success.
That's beautiful. And that she's realizing that she has a place in this purpose for her life, to be the best woman that she can be, you know, and instill all that love into her son. And that's incredible of what you're doing and what you continue to do, that it's just not, you know, just to show itself, but you're taking your story and putting it into action, and you helping others, and you do motivational speaking, and you wrote a song about it, which had me in tears. That, I mean, the powerful song of, you know, writing a letter. I mean, that started for me back to that video that you released, Kyle. It started me to write in my journal again, because I didn't realize, and I hated writing. I mean, I hated writing in school. I hated writing in college. And I'm like, okay, why do we have to write these thesis papers or essay papers and all this other stuff? But I didn't realize the power of writing, just like you do. You write songs, when you put in words to paper, how much of a healing that is, you releasing, you know, what's going on during your day. You know, I feel great, or I feel crappy, or I feel, you know, this emotion, or this happened to me, or someone said this to me, and, you know, writing it all down. And just like at the end, you know, the sentence, you know, sincerely Marisa, or love Marisa, or me, I would read that and I'd be like, whew, girl, you had yourself a week, or you had yourself an hour or a day, or whatever. What do you feel that when it comes, you know, this you writing, and I'm sure that you journal, because, you know, most songwriters I've talked to do journal, that writing down stuff like that, that it's just opened up so much for you, healing, clarity. I mean, what is your take on that?
I do journal. I have periods where I am like, oh, where I do it for, you know, months and months. And then I have periods where I fall off, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta, you know, journal tonight. You know, I can tell that I need to get it out. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I always get back on the wagon, you know, and journaling is so, for me anyway, therapeutic. It's, you know, writing songs is the same way, you know, it's the same thing, essentially. It's just, you know, for me, writing songs is journaling in, you know, a thing that rhymes sometimes, you know, and so it's just very therapeutic to be able to get out your thoughts and be able to look back on exactly what you were thinking later. It also helps you put into perspective what's going on. You know, if I'm manic and writing, you know, oh my God, this week has been insane and blah, 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 blah. And then a month later, I'm like, well, yeah, it sounds like you had some stress going on with, you know, your job or your relationship or whatever. But it wasn't, now that I can look back a month later and say, you know, well, you probably didn't need to be freaking out like you were. You know what I'm saying? It gives you perspective. And I think that's so good. And another thing I think we should all be doing more of is journaling. I mean, it's just so powerful.
I agree with you. And it's amazing looking back at some of my journals, the growth that I've had. I'm like, whoo, I tell you what, good thing you didn't let this mountain stay in your way, that you decided to climb and achieve, you know, your goal and break free from whatever you were going through, and you climbed to that top of that mountain. And it also kind of, you know, shifted my eyes and shifted I kind of use it like a satellite dish away from what I was thinking was the best decision for me. And it got me to, you know, the path that I'm on now. And so with you journaling and songwriting and everything else, and now you are at iHeartRadio, which is absolutely incredible. And I hope everybody that's watching and listening does follow you. At the end, they'll let you drop all your social media handles and everything else about pop culture and everything else. How did all that transpire with you connecting with iHeartRadio and you starting your show and your podcast?
Well, that's funny. I mean, and this all stemmed essentially from Oprah's Life class. I mean, from Oprah's Life class, I got invited to the Obama administration's My Brother's Keeper initiative, which was huge for me because that was a initiative that looked to help fatherless, in particular, fatherless sons before they became that statistic. And so it was mentoring and outreach and that sort of thing, getting them involved in sports before they got involved in gangs or whatever it was, or getting them involved in arts before they, somebody else could influence their life negatively. And, I got to do so many things because of that. I started writing for Huffington Post at the time under Oprah's own section there. Doing kind of self-improvement stuff for millennials. And I mean, it really just changed my life, the trajectory of my life. So I started a podcast at the time called Kyle to You. And it was just all kinds of things from, honest conversations to celebrity interviews and that sort of thing. And it did pretty well. And so I was doing, relatively speaking, and so I was doing video interviews and stuff, and I was putting them on social and all that kind of thing. So I was getting, really, it ended up helping to prepare me for what was to come. But what ended up happening was a friend of mine that I had worked with professionally through a business. So I still technically own a marketing business, and I had worked with her on a project, and she was is a on-air talent at iHeart locally to me in Delaware. And so this position came up, and she's like, "You should do it." And I'm like, "Well, I don't, I didn't go to broadcast school. I don't have any experience on radio or anything like that." And she's like, "With everything else that you're doing, like with the podcast and the videos and that sort of thing, like, I think you'd be fine." So I did, and I was hired. And then I started, a big thing for me was to start this podcast called Pop Culture Weekly, which was kind of an offshoot or kind of a rebranding of what I was doing before with a website called Pop Culture Whore, which was celebrity news and that sort of thing. And so basically I just turned that into Pop Culture Weekly because it was more appropriate and mainstream, and they loved the idea of it. And then I started using my connections from from Warner and doing the various things over the years with music and all, to be like, "Hey, I have this new show at iHeart, do you think you'd be interested in having them come on or whatever?" And then it just grew from there, and it has done really, really well, and it's grown, and now it's promoted nationally, and it's really been huge for me. And I've gotten to interview,
well, who's been your favorite interviews? I want to know. Bring all the details.
Geez, I really look to, so a big thing for me is I never script my interviews. One, because I'm horrendous at remembering anything. And two, because I'm so ADD that by the second question, if I had written it down, we're going to be on a totally different tangent. Yeah. Anyway, so for me, that's important for me because I enjoy the conversation more. So I really like that aspect of like, "Hey, what are you working on today?" You know what I mean?
And that's why I like your show, because it's not interview format. It's just we're all gathered here in this room, and we have some snacks on the table, got a bar back here. Let's just talk about what you got going on in your life. What's next? Where are you going? Where you vacation at? That's what I love about the vibe of your show, because it's just good friends that are getting together and just getting caught up.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's exactly what my hope for it is. I'm just not the type of person to, wear a suit and tie and and have my cards and all that. It's just not me. Yeah. And so obviously the show is a reflection of that. And, I just interviewed Gloria Estefan for the second time, which is like crazy to me.
That's awesome.
And I interviewed her the first time, and we ended up talking for like 45 minutes the first time. And it was about her first new album in like a decade, and that was really cool. And then now she's in a Father of the Bride with Andy Garcia coming out, and so I interviewed both of them, and she's like, "Hey, Kyle, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Did Gloria Estefan just say, hey, Kyle, how you doing?" Like, what is happening? What world am I living in?
Who am I?
Right.
You met me?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't see another Kyle. Maybe she is talking to me. But you know, it's just been awesome, and the guests have been incredible, and I think the guests appreciate that. You know, I'm not looking for the gotcha stuff. I don't care. You know, my show doesn't cover celebrity gossip in regards to relationships or I mean, like, you know, it's just not me. There's plenty of sites out there that do that. There's plenty of shows that do that. And I'm sure they do it well. I just don't care about that stuff. I want to know about you and your projects and why you're doing that project. And, you know, what does Gloria Estefan do, you know, on her day off? Like, I want to know that, you know what I mean? I don't care about anything, you know, salacious or anything. So, you know, I've gotten to so I'm a huge Marvel Studios fan, and I've now gotten to interview two Avengers. I have a third one coming up soon. And so like, it's just, I'm like a fanboy, you know what I mean? I'm genuinely a fan of the people that I talk to. And that is a dream for me as that little kid that would, you know, an adult really, that would just float away in movies for hours and hours and hours. And, you know, be able to escape. But movies and music were always my escape from whatever was going on. So to be able to talk to some of the creators involved with these projects has been just a dream. So I you know, every guest I've learned from, and I truly, truly mean that, every guest that I've talked to, I have learned something from, and some have been, you know, like, oh, that's cool. And some have been like, wow, that's a aha moment. You know what I mean?
Well, with all the guests, I wanted to ask you that, with the guests that you had on your show, who gave you the best advice? Like something that you will never forget. Like, you're like, ooh, that's an amazing aha moment that I'm going to apply to my everyday life.
Oh my gosh. That is a really great question. I would have to say either Mike Posner or Gloria Estefan. And Mike, in regards to living your life, you know, just how you choose to live your life and be the designer of your own life. And that was really huge for me. And then with Gloria, I asked her what success means to her. And I tried to ask every guest that, you know, what does success mean to you? Because if I'm talking to successful people, I want to know, you know, what is success to you? So what she said to me is, you know, for music, for her entertainment side of her career, she was like, that was a place in time. And while I still may dabble here and there, she said, you know, what ultimately is success is surrounding yourself with people, good people that you love and that love you. And that to me is incredible. Because, you know, here's an icon that has sold 100 million records around the world, plus, you know, influenced so many artists, you know, Shakira and J-Lo and Mark, oh my God, you know, tons of artists. And to her, success is not, oh, I had to hit 100 million or 50 million or whatever. Success is surrounding yourself with people that love you and you love. And that is huge to me. And it really is true. You know, in my opinion, it really is true that, you know, I know people that are multimillionaires that are super duper unhappy, you know, and I have friends that are struggling to make rent. And they're just the happiest people in the world. And, you know, it has nothing to do with money or job or whatever. It really is, you know, what you do with what you have.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I had like a sound button to drop that gem, because that is so, that is key. And once people get that we are all connected, it's a beautiful thing. It's an absolute beautiful thing to surround yourself with people that believe in you, that love you, that want the best for you, that support you. It's absolutely amazing. Is there a guest that you have not had on your show that you really want to be a guest?
I want to get Mama O. I want to get Oprah.
Of course.
She is definitely on the bucket list. Working on Madonna. You know, I would love to have Kendrick. I was lucky enough to meet Kendrick, and that was enough for me at the time. But now I'm like, okay, no, that's not enough. I need to interview. You know, I mean, I have a dream list. You know, Obama. I mean, of course, there's so many amazing people. That would probably be Dolly Parton would be a great one. Eminem would be a great one. I mean, I wish Elvis was alive. I would love to talk to him. You know, there's so many interesting people that, you know, what fascinates me, I think, is the human aspect of celebrity. It's very weird. You know, I've not that I'm famous or anything, but, you know, I've been in situations where people have been like, oh, you know, I love your show. Can I get a picture with you or whatever? And I appreciate that. But it's also kind of weird. You know what I mean? Just because it's not like, and I don't mean towards them. I mean, I'm so thankful that they love the show, but it's weird when I do it to people I love. You know, it's weird. Like, I'm like, hello, person I've never met before. I like a thing that you did. Can I have a picture with you? You know what I mean? Like, it's just strange. Yeah. And so that's very fascinating to me on both sides of it. And to hear that, you know, and Andrew Garfield, who I talked with recently, he, you know, just the kinds of things that he's into, that's relaxing. And it's just like, well, I do that too. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a strange thing, this celebrity, obsessed culture that we live in.
And of course, they're normal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I say that having a show called Pop Culture Weekly, so I get like the irony of me thinking that, but I'm just fascinated by that. And I think I always have been. You know, what does Eminem, you know, what does he do on his day off? Is he like, you know, hanging around in sweatpants, like, you know, mowing his lawn, or like what do you do? You know, it's just curious. It's just interesting to me.
You go and bake cookies and then later on eat mom's spaghetti. Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, literally.
Which is on my list now, because my friends went to go to his restaurant, Mom's Spaghetti, and said it was pretty dang good. So that gives me a reason to go back home to Detroit. I'm like, noted. I will put that on there. I will put that on there.
I'll put that on my list too.
Yeah, you gotta put that on there. Maybe we'll meet up for some Mom's Spaghetti.
There you go.
And then we do a show out there.
Absolutely.
It's so cool to hear you talk about, you know, how your life has changed and he's transformed for the better and everything else. And you give so much credit to your mom and how much she has meant to you. And you had dealt with a terrible blow in your life of losing her. Talk about that in the perspective of, you know, she lost her life to pancreatic cancer, and then now you being a voice for pancreatic cancer. Because let me tell you, I didn't. It also had affected in my life with a really good friend of mine. It affected them. Their mother passed, and it was right around the time when you lost yours. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know nothing about this. I don't, you know, this disease, you know, I've heard, you know, a little bit about everything else, but I think that you now become a voice of it, become an advocate of it in honor of your mother. Talk about the work that you're doing, and, you know, getting the disease of the pancreatic cancer. People should know about it, and getting the word and the message out there, the importance of getting themselves checked and screened ahead of time.
So, yeah, you know, the closest person to me in the world is my mom. And, you know, her and I, especially because of the father, you know, situation, her and I were always extremely close, and she was my rock. Her and my mom, it was her mom. And I lost my two women, my two people, my two rocks. My mom passed in November. And then my mom passed in March. This was of last year. And so it came quick in a lot of ways. You know, my mom was diagnosed probably about 1.5 years before that, and while she did have chemo and that sort of thing, you know, she was still she taught dance, and she was still creating videos, you know, for her dance classes, and she would drive herself, you know, here and there, and so there wasn't, you know, it wasn't necessarily a flash in my eyes of I'm gonna lose her. And then very quickly, really right around when my mom passed, my mom went downhill from there. I mean, from November to March. And that is by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, that I've ever had to go through. She is such a huge, influential part of my life that it just reverberates everywhere. And so having, you know, gone through with Oprah's Life class, with learning the power of telling my story, I said, I need to do something about this. I need to tell this story. Mm-hmm. And so I am now finishing up a series for iHeart podcast network called Death, Grief, and Other Shit We Don't Discuss. Mm-hmm. And it is a 13-episode series, and it is a kind of a mixture of two formats where each episode is on a different part of the journey. So the first episode is getting a diagnosis like that. The second episode is that's terminal. You know, the third episode is near death, that sort of thing, all the way to, you know, moving to finding meaning in mourning. And so the first half of each episode is my mom's story. And then the second half of each episode is a subject matter expert talking about that part of the cancer journey. Mm-hmm. So in the first episode, you know, I tell the story of my mom getting diagnosed, how just what a shockwave it brings to everybody. And then I talk with a health psychologist who works in oncology with cancer patients about how do you handle that? You know, what do you do? That sort of thing. So that's kind of how it works. And it has been a year working on this, almost to the day. And I actually go up to New York tomorrow to iHeart headquarters to discuss marketing and release dates and all that. But it is really, I knew it was going to be hard to do. Yeah. But holy crap, this was really, 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 really hard to do. I'm glad that I'm doing it because I really, truly believe it's going to help a lot of people. I really do. But wow, was this hard to do? And has it been helping you? Yes. I'm learning so much about all kinds of things. You know, mm-hmm. We did a seance for one of the episodes, and I went up to Lilydale, New York, which is a town in like a hamlet in New York of mediums and spiritualists. And, you know, I got a reading up there relating to her, and just, you know, we've been doing all kinds of things for the show. Right. And I've been talking to all kinds of people. You know, I talked to a mortician, and, you know, learning all about death and dying and grief, and mm-hmm. and I am learning a lot, and it is helping me in many ways. It helps keep me connected to her. Yeah. You know, I'm going through I have this binder, and one of the things that I have is there's like 1,100 pages of text between my mom and I that I had printed out, and also my best friend. So I can look at my text with him and see minute by minute what was happening from the day she was diagnosed until today. And I could see what I was thinking because I was telling him, hey, mom just got this news. I can't believe blah, 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 blah. And so it's like a journal of that entire period. And it also has made me collect. You know, I sent all of my mom's voicemails to multiple emails, and mm-hmm. that I, you know, voicemails that I had, and photos and videos. And so in that, it's made me continue to feel close to her. I'm also learning how to survive, learning how to survive each and every day.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I've learned from this show is that you will never get over, somebody that you love that much. You'll never going to get over it. Even healing, you don't really heal. You learn how to live with their absence. And that doesn't mean you can't have happiness again or anything like that. But in our society, we have a tendency to say, give it 5 years and you'll be, or whatever, or, it just takes time. Well, no, 5 years later, you still love that person and miss them to death. But hopefully by that point, you have found a way for you to get out of bed every day. And you have found a reason and purpose to continue. And that doesn't lessen your love for them. And it doesn't lessen your connection with them. It doesn't mean you're over it or you are, healed or whatever. It means that you have found a way to survive. And so that's probably been the biggest lesson that have learned doing this show.
And I like that you're taking your platform with that in your mother's memory and have pretty much myself, I can speak for myself, have educated people that have, seen the events that you hosted or things that you have done, fundraisers you have done about pancreatic cancer and purple. Now, was purple her favorite color? Is that why the connection with it? Because purple's my favorite color, so I just thought that was pretty cool.
It is an amazing color. Purple is representative of pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
And so it became representative for us as we were going through her journey. So, that became a big color for us, ultimately because of it being representative of pancreatic cancer. Okay. And to answer your other question, sorry, I went off track a little, but to answer your other question regarding pancreatic cancer itself, when my mom passed, I wrote a list of 10 things that I wanted to do in 30 days and a list of 10 things that I wanted to do in 1 year, all relating to her. So one of them was to plant a garden with her favorite flowers, and another one was to set up a foundation in her name where 100% of the proceeds went to pancreatic cancer research and all of these things. So one of the big ones for me has been starting this foundation, and all of the money goes directly to PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And they do an incredible job. They were so unbelievably amazing for me and my mom and my family from the day she was diagnosed and I called them until after she passed. I mean that. They were there every step of the way. And they were very big on getting, my mom's tumor tested genetically, which is something they don't always do. So they were big on make sure they do it. Here's how they can code it, all of that, which helps with better treatment outcomes. And one good thing that has happened in the pancreatic cancer world is that when my mom was diagnosed, it was 9% survival rate of 5 years. So if you get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, there is a 9% chance that you will survive 5 years. By the end, when my mom passed, which was, again, about 2 years later, it had jumped up to 11%, which is a big number in a couple of years.
Right.
And a big part of that is awareness that this is I believe it is the deadliest cancer. And it is growing in the amount of people that are being diagnosed with it. So a big part of that jump is awareness of what it is, how to get screened, that sort of thing. And funding. The government had severely underfunded pancreatic cancer. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling circle in that thing. Nobody ever hears of it, doesn't get money, and then we lost Aretha Franklin and Alex Trebek, and and the list goes on, and Patrick Swayze, and so that all kind of carries the momentum of the conversation. So then it rallies people like me to hopefully say to my friends or my circle, hey, just fill this out and it'll automatically send you a letter to your senator as they are working on the budget for next year. And this, you know, it's all filled out with, let's put in a little extra money for pancreatic cancer research, you know, this next year or whatever. And so it's a movement of all of these kinds of wheels or cogs working together in this wheel, or whatever the, you know, saying is, to make that happen. And so so that's extremely important to me, because I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through, what my mom went through. I mean, my mom, you know, she just did not, in 3 months, she went from being this long, you know, beautiful black haired, we would call her Snow White. She had like pure white skin and black hair. And then in 3 months, I mean, she just didn't look like her. And I don't want anybody to have to go through that. And so the way to do that is to remind people, you know, get checked. There is no specific test, which is why it's often never caught until it's in advanced stage. But you can get colonoscopies and that sort of thing. They can all, when you're getting that sort of thing done, you can ask the doctor for that. Right. And so
I love, like I said, that you just, I feel you continue to carry on her legacy through everything that you do, you know, the platform that you have and the posts that you put up and the things that she loved. And, you know, it makes me smile from time to time that, you know, a son's bond with their mother is just, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I look around, you know, as well as you, we see so much going on right now, a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unfortunate things that are happening around the world. We have went through almost a half a year, Kyle, and from time to time when I wake up and I was like, okay, Marisa, what is your hope for 2022? We got a half a year down and a half a year to go with all of this going on. And, you know, I will journal it. I'll write it down of, you know, what my hope is. I mean, I ask you the same question. What is your hope for 2022? What, through the eyes of Kyle McMahon, do you see through all the chaos, you know, pulling back the curtain of chaos and all of the stuff that's going on, that little glimmer of hope? What is yours for this year?
For me, you know, my hope is that, you know, I've literally put everything that I have into this series that I'm working on. And if it can help, you know, we have so much loss. I mean, we, you know, over 1 million people have died in the United States from COVID alone, in, you know, the last, 2 years. And the gun violence and, you know, everything. People are grieving, you know, and I've put everything literally into the show emotionally. And my hope personally is that this show can help somebody else's grief journey be a little bit less. You know, I joked with iHeart as we were talking about this, and I was like, I'm going to the best experts in the country on grief and death, and you guys are going to pay for it. And I joked, but it's also quite serious that, you know, because of the show, somebody that might not have the resources to go see a specific grief therapist that, you know, specifically deals with grief, they'll be able to listen to a conversation with them on actionable steps that they can take that just might help make their journey a little bit less horrible, you know? And so that is my hope for 2022 personally, that I want death, grief, and other shit we don't discuss to help somebody else, anybody else, on their grief journey than this last year of working on it and all the tears. I mean, crying here in my studio sometimes, you know, doing the vocals and stuff, just missing my mom and replaying those events. And it makes it all worth it if that can help their journey be a little bit less horrible.
And I know it will, and I know what you're doing through everything that you're doing is remarkable. And I applaud you and I appreciate you, my friend, of everything that you've done, stemming back from when you were a young man and still a young man, in that life class and when it aired in May of 2013, and the impact that you've made since, Kyle. Thank you so much for what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're helping people, how you continue to help people. I know that you've done so much, but I just wanted to take this moment to say thanks to you as a person. I'm not going to tear up on this microphone because, whoo, I was like, maybe I should bring some Kleenex with me. No, I'm not. Well, I got my sleeve, but you have helped me as a person on this journey of now, doing my podcast almost 2 years of, some of the things that you'll post up, or, I'll go on your website and check out past episodes that you've had, one with Deepak Chopra. And again, we talked about Mike Posner. And, going back to, your episode on the masterclass, how you have literally at a time where I think that I am fine and that I'm good. I don't need all that, that hurt needed to come out. And many pillows have been punched and many tears have been shed. And many times I have walked inside of a closet and screamed and it came back out. And my husband's like, "Oh, you good?" I'm like, "Oh, now I am." Thank you for what you have done on, using your voice, being an advocate, being a writer, being a person that, is not afraid to go there and to talk about it and have those conversations because they are needed. And I want people to follow you. I want people to connect with you. So how can they connect with you on your socials and on your show?
On Instagram and Twitter, I'm at KMacMusic. Facebook, I'm at Real Kyle McMahon. And my show, Pop Culture Weekly, you can get wherever you get podcasts. iHeart Radio app, of course, Apple Music, Spotify, wherever. Just type it in, and I'm there.
People, download the app, follow Kyle McMahon. He is absolutely amazing, an incredible person, an amazing human being. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the Heard That podcast.
Marisa, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you and what you do.
And thank you so much, everybody, for listening and for watching. And as I always end the show, be good to one another. Take care. Stay safe. We are out of here.